Hello and welcome to October's edition of SFI Not So Live with me, Jay Evans, your host. I'm joined by Tony, as always. Hi, Tony.
Hello.
And Phil's with us again. Phil.
Hi, Jay.
Hello. And we have a very special guest in a lovely lady called Lisa. Lisa, nice to see you and meet you for the first time, because you and I haven't met. How about an introduction to the audience first before we go on? Just who you are and where you work.
Of course. So I'm Lisa Parmley. I have my own mortgage company called Lisa Parmley Mortgage Management.
Lovely job. And the topics, or the first couple of topics we're going to talk about, Lisa is very experienced because you're building your own home, aren't you?
I am, yes.
And that gives a bit of a clue. We are talking about self-build this month. Just a few caveats from me that these are our own opinions and not necessarily those that employ us. And we will be talking about rate, but perhaps and other details that might be slightly out of date. We're recording on the 27th September 2024. So that's the boring bit out of the way. Let's crack on and let's talk about self and custom builds. Tony's a passionate subject we have talked about so many times, and we are going to keep reinforcing this message because we do believe in this area of the market. So it's an opportunity, I think, to talk about how people can build for their future. You know, this is about the broker's customers. This is about the borrowers, and saying, actually, you don't have to be satisfied with what you're given. Go out and get something for yourself and build for your future. I think that's a really nice way of framing this. I think, Tony, you'd agree with that.
Absolutely.
And Tony, you're a member of NAXPA, so
I am. Yes.
I think that's a fair thing to talk about in this discussion. So the first part of this podcast is going to be a wider discussion about that, I think. So let's start off with Lisa. Let's talk about your experience first. So for our audience, and we've got a mixed audience of brokers and general public. So let's talk about your experience. Now, how long have you been building your own home, and what made you do it?
Okay, so timeline from deciding to put in plan and permission is 5 years. Okay. And how long have we dreamed of doing a self-build? My husband's a builder himself, so we've always dreamed of doing it. Never thought it would be a reality. What actually made that happen is I actually worked for Build Store and arranged self-build finance as a mortgage advisor. And that really got me to the point that I was like, I want to do this myself. My husband definitely had it on his agenda, helping lots of clients build different things and improve different things. He's always wanted to have that for himself as well. We just decided that we would, we'd made quite a lot of money on a renovation previously. And we just decided that might be the time to take the leap and find a plot of land.
Love that. And we haven't had anybody on the podcast before that's done it. So this is quite a nice experience. Brilliant. How have you found it? I know it's stressful. It's going to be stressful. But even buying a house is stressful enough. But building your own must be difficult. But I suppose having a builder husband helps. But how have you found the process? What's it been like? Has it been what you expected?
It's been a journey. Resilience is definitely top of the list on what you need. So we had a battle with planning. We ended up having to go to a committee, which we, just due to the parish council saying no, and the committee, planning committee, fully agreed that we were doing the right thing. The build we're doing is very eco, so we were very conscious about doing that side of things. So that was the sort of first thing to get over. Originally, we were going to do because we've got a bungalow that's run down on the actual plot. We were just going to renovate that bungalow. So pretty much it would have almost been knocked down and probably a couple of walls left and renovate that, but that got refused at planning. So we didn't give up then. We went back, went on holiday, had a little think, and then worked out that actually we could then put in for planning to have a house in the garden right up towards the bungalow, and that way we wouldn't need to live in a static during the build itself.
That's nice.
And like I said, we then went through, made some alterations to why the original planning was declined, and managed to get that through. And then from then on, it was the finance obviously being key. And that would be the biggest thing I would say is be so conscious of your cash flow and contingency. People like to want that dream and think we can do it without contingency. Mm-hmm. Obviously, as we all know, with what's happened with the markets and build costs and things like that, they've gone up in the 5 years that we've been looking to do this. We've probably paid a third extra in build costs that we originally were thinking about. But I think my husband would say it's a bit like deciding to have a baby and thinking, am I going to look at all the costs associated with that and not bother, or shall I just go into it? And that's what I would say. It's a similar analogy, really, with the self-build itself.
That's really good advice, actually, because we do say, I mean, we've said about Grand Designs is the one place that people will look and think, oh, this is great. But actually, a lot of what's put on there is designed to show you the problems that come in. There's not the smooth and easy easy builds that are probably more commonplace. But
absolutely,
it's nice to hear that you do have your ups and downs. The contingency budget, I think, that's forever comes out on Grand Designs, but I think it's really important that people see that. And one of the things we want to talk about, Tony, I think, during this discussion is encouraging more young people and first-time buyers to see self and custom build as an option for them, right? So just something I found on the FMB's website, 1 in 3 dream of building their own home from their research. But you've done your own. But, you know, it is getting more prevalent. It is getting more interest. How do we encourage young people? Is it people like Lisa talking about their experiences that are going to help?
Look, absolutely. I think well, look, there's a lot of things that need to be done, and obviously we can talk about NAXPA later and what we campaign for there in terms of making this market more accessible. So a lot of it's around the planning reform needed to make this a more viable and an option. Mm-hmm. A lot of it is around help the government making sure that people understand that custom build particularly, and self-build are a part of the solution that we need to build more houses. Because we just need to reference the European model and in fact the developed world model, and we are miles off it. As we keep saying, 7% of houses in the UK are self-commissioned homes. Mm-hmm. The average for developed countries is 40%, with the best being, I think it's Austria at 60%.
See, that's really high. It seems ridiculously high compared to where we are. But
yeah,
it's still the third biggest builder, though, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's the 4th largest builder in the UK,
fourth.
self-build. So and that's growing. So we need the planning reform. We need local authorities to step up and really take it seriously on the right to build registers and take it all this stuff. Lisa's nodding at because you know all about this. So there's a lot, but it is a viable opportunity, particularly custom build, you know, because you're not having to do it. It's self-build light. It's somebody else. Yes, you'll have the ups and downs. And you need the cash flow and all to do it, but the day-to-day, somebody is taking control of it all. You're just telling them, this is the house I want.
Yeah.
Which is why, you know, it's great to hear all the government support for we're going to build loads of new houses. My issue is, you're going to build loads of houses that people don't want to live in.
Yeah,
absolutely. You know? So do these new towns have space for people to go, I want to build my own, thanks. Thanks for creating and enabling me to do this. Let me do it. So that's what I'm really interested in. We don't, you know, most people, what's the stat we used, Phil? When we asked everybody, 2/3 of people don't want to live in a new build house built by somebody else.
Okay.
Yeah. The problem is 80% of all new houses are built by the big builders.
Absolutely. I've talked about this before.
We have,
those conglomerate builders, those 3 big players.
Yeah, and look, I've got no issue with them. That's what they do. It's their business. But we need to facilitate and create this environment so that young people go, oh, this is a way I could do it. You know, it is a safe way. Germany, as an example, do a hell of a lot through collective building in blocks of flats. You know, a collective group of people get together, economies of scale, you know, with builders, etc., and contractors, and they build a block of flats to live in. You know, we just need to learn from that model, I think, definitely.
Phil, we cut you off then. You were going to say
something.
No,
sorry, Phil.
I think you covered the point anyway that I was going to jump in and make. But for me, I think there's the opportunity is also for the SME builders, the smaller builders as well, and developers. So it's giving those the opportunity because of some smaller sites aren't going to be viable for the big house builders anyway. So it's enabling the SME builder and developer to be able to take advantage of probably some of the smaller developments that are probably rife for a small custom build site.
And that's economic growth, right?
Absolutely.
That's economic growth. That's what we're hearing at the moment. It's growth. That's economic growth. Give SMEs the opportunity to grow and make income and develop themselves. Yeah. That's economic growth. So surely it makes sense. And Lisa,
we touched on eco, didn't we? And again, you're going to use more local tradespeople, so that's going to help local economies as well. So
That's a big thing
all
I
these
would
other
say is
benefits.
around the learning of the smaller builders. So again, from our experience, my husband has been a builder for 35 years. It's always been brick and block. Going to the South Build Centre, I spoke to somebody there and said, if you were starting fresh, you've got a plot of land, what would you build out of? And he said to me, ICF, insulation concrete front. And so I went back, and you can imagine the reaction. It's like Jason was like, no, I know my trade inside out. I'm free labour. That's part of why we're doing this. But anyway, through talking it through, for him going on extra training days with the company, he's now developed his business into a modern method of construction that he
So
can
it's
now
evolved
do
his business. Wow.
as well.
And the good thing is, do you know what ICF is, Jay?
No.
Right. Basically, it's
I think I might, but
it's
you need to explain
in effect, it's polystyrene, right? Blocks like Lego,
Yeah.
and then you backfill in the middle
You
with
fill them in.
concrete.
I have seen them. Yeah, I don't know what it's called.
10 years ago, lenders ran a mile if you mentioned ICF. Yeah, it wouldn't get. I
you
remember.
wouldn't
I
get
remember
any
going
further.
to the self build centre in Swindon and looking at it, going, "Wow, that's good," but no one will ever lend on that. Now it's fairly standard.
Yes.
Everybody
Yes.
will lend on it, as you know, because
Yeah.
you've done it. So that's the other beauty of the world. We are starting to grow up and learn a bit more about modern methods of construction and actually take a bit of a leap. But as a lending community and a surveying community, that's one area we do need to do some significant work on, because we still just think a house is bricks and tile roof, and if anything beyond that, it's like, ooh.
Yeah, to be scared of it.
So, yeah.
There's that eco message to Phil you just mentioned, and again, Lisa. So, how much of your build has been influenced by your finances? So, future finances. Have you looked at your home in such a way that you have to heat less, you store more heat, you use more modern methods of heating? And was that a consideration when building your house, or was that just a benefit of building your own house? Do you see what I mean?
Yes,
was it
completely. I think, well, obviously the benefit of doing it is being able to choose, but definitely this one for us is our, a forever home, dream home. So it was absolutely working out the cost of it once we had it, obviously, in and moved in. So the insulation concrete frame, the ICF itself is so insulated. We went and visited properties that had already been done, and just the feel of those.
So you can see, you can literally feel the difference.
Yeah, and also they had the MVHR, the mechanical ventilation heat recovery, which a lot of people are like, is it worth doing that or not? But again, we've invested the money in putting that in. Solar panels. We've actually got our solar panels already commissioned because we've got the bungalow. And actually, I think the other evening we tracked it, and it's gone from £9 that evening would have cost us to 39p.
Wow.
Just in an evening of what we were doing with sun up on the Xbox and things like that. So already, and we're not even in the house yet, we're seeing the benefit of the solar panels.
And so when you're in, your future life as you head towards retirement, you're going to be paying less for energy bills and all these things. And these are massive considerations for young people. So again, we're talking about attracting more people into self and custom build, and then we're saying actually these houses are going to be more eco-friendly to build, but also more economic to run. So they're going to save you money.
Absolutely.
You realise how much of a no-brainer this seems to be. Am I over-exaggerating
No,
that?
not
It's
at
a
all.
no-brainer, surely.
We have an institutionalized ideology of building. Of some big company does it and builds us a box that no one actually wants to live in, but they have to, because there's not a perceived option to do that because of planning issues. It's just the planning system is just so dysfunctional.
It's the planning and the plot availability.
Absolutely.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Well, saying that, it's not, because that's where we talk a lot about plot availability. It is, but it isn't, because we only actually build on 1% of available land in the UK.
Right, okay.
As it
That's
stands,
interesting.
1%.
Wow.
The rest is just planning, tied up in planning. It's brownfield, it's green belt, it's this, it's that, it's this use, it's inside a village development, it's outside of it, all this stuff, which is just a nightmare.
And that's what they're trying to pick apart, isn't it? All these the red tapes that are unnecessary red tapes. Because there's something considered as a greenfield land, but it's actually a concrete car park. How is that a greenfield?
Yeah.
Surely you'd get rid of an
And
ugly
then-
car park that's not being used and give it as a plot for 3 or 4 self-builders. Makes so much more sense to me.
But the biggest thing is we got to kill, that's not the right word, I should take that back. We have to stop the NIMBYs.
Yes.
So we have this huge dichotomy of, we need to build more houses, but not next to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have to build them
No, that's so
somewhere.
true.
So we've got to stop that. So how many developments get blocked because of influence? Which is life.
If these councils looked at some of this research, we were talking about the research last time. Do you remember about people's choice of houses? How all of a sudden it wasn't so much being, it was connectability. It was like down to transport because of the working arrangements. But actually outside space, people were having to look for parks because they knew if they had a more modern house, they would have a square rectangular plot of land outside of it that had no character and nowhere for their kids to play. So actually a consideration was whether or not there was a park close by. But actually, if we're building our own home and using our own plot, we use our plot and design our plot based around our family, surely in the future of what our families are going to be.
But even then,
I know it's ideological.
even then, you're still hamstrung by a planner. Who goes, I don't like that. I wouldn't want to do that, so I'm going to say no to it.
Yeah.
It's the planners, but also, in my experience, not just for myself, but also helping clients with self-builds, it's the parish councils as well.
Yeah.
Really,
I have to admit,
really,
the smallest
they were
of things,
so against us with every single thing that we tried to do. And, we're creating a beautiful stone slate building. It is on the edge of the village, but for them to put down the reason that they appealed it and said we shouldn't do it is because it's on the edge of the village and you can see it. Well, you've got a 1960s bungalow that we're heating outside compared to this beautiful. And for that to be the reason, which is why obviously the planning were for it, because they could see that. But there was just no reasonable logic other than they just didn't like that in the village.
It's just NIMBY.
And it is NIMBYs. And parish councils are the worst. I had the same. I mean, I talk about my pub far too much on here, but all I wanted was a little corrugated roof over half of a pergola to keep smokers dry.
Yeah.
But because I built a lodge in the garden of my pub that is huge and is covered, but is about 100 yards away from my pub, people get soaked when they go outside. And I said, can I have this little strip to keep them dry? They said no, because I built the lodge. Absolutely no other thing that, and no appeal decision because I'm a business. But someone just sat there, pen pusher just sat there and went, nope, not that. Thank you. That was it. End of. No consultation, no chat, no nothing. And you just think, just for something, how the hell do you go through the process of getting a house? And as soon as you mentioned parish councils, I thought I can just imagine what those meetings were like.
Yeah. I mean, they even commented on, they'd gone into the detail of our plans and said, well, you don't need to have that because you can have that elsewhere. And was trying to tell us how we should have our rooms in our house.
That's what I'm saying. It's
a lot.
This reform needs to really sort that out. It's dysfunctional. There's too much power placed in the wrong hands, in my view. But that's life. Look, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Absolutely. And that's exactly the same with planning.
And it's a challenge, but it's great when you overcome that.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. It is, but it's painful in the process, isn't it? Anyway.
We're gonna come on to planning reform in a bit, but let's just quickly put a 2 pence worth in now. Are we expecting the planning reform that we're hoping for with the conversations we're having? I mean, I've just had a Labour Party conference, just for reference, it's the end of September, so we just had a conference. I didn't hear much about it. It seems to be high on the agenda for not just for the government, but for everybody in the country to see this planning reform. Are we going to see enough?
I thought the mood music was positive, and it wasn't just about housing. It was like, look, we want to build. We want more prisons, so you might have to live near a prison. We want more housing, so we're going to have to. You're going to have to live near more housing. If we at least is stating the facts that we all have choices and compromises to make if we want the country we want. So I thought the mood music was positive.
The devil will be. Literally said we will ignore some issues.
The devil will be in the detail, but it was more pragmatic, and it's positive because I think sometimes you've got that natural protectionism, haven't you, from the local MP who might be in a rural constituency, and that seems to be more on the back burner. So let's wait and see. But we're seeing some positivity there, which is good.
Let's talk about some positivity on the market, Tony, and talk about custom build, because we do talk about it a lot. But some of the things, I'm just going to highlight some of the things I've learned, and then you can elaborate for me, and we'll talk about Naxtra and what you're working on with them as well. But from a customer perspective, the bit I loved, something you said many, many podcasts ago about almost having a brochure of the homes you can have and how flexible custom builds are. Do you want to just maybe give the audience and it's the same to every consumer and every broker out there, the diversity and what's available with custom build and why it should be a consideration.
Yeah, I mean, I think the website I was talking about was actually from Germany, so because it's a far more prevalent market there, and one website has over 2,500 house designs in it.
That's great.
Just one, which would just blow our minds. Custom build, I mean, it is basically it's I'm trying to get my words out now. It is all the fun of self-build without a lot of the pain. So you're actually, an SME builder will say, look, either here's a plot of land, I've put it up to damp-proof course, take it away, I can build that house for you or somebody else can, and then what do you want it to look like? Mm-hmm. So the beauty of custom build, and I think Graven Hill's a good example of this, you'll have 4 or 5 houses that look the same externally, but internally the layout is 100% different.
That's the bit I didn't know.
It's the internal configuration, and you can do that out externally as well if you want. But a lot of the custom build kind of shell models, they look the same, but the insides are completely different. So in this world where people want a bigger kitchen, or I want study, or I want this and that, that's the beauty. You're not, any large builders that say, oh yeah, we're custom build because we let you choose the kitchen, right? That's not custom build. Custom build is where you got fully customize what your house needs to do and how it needs to flow.
Yeah,
that's the beauty of it.
And people are working differently, and in future they will work differently. But also, one thing I've noted from this, we'll talk about it in a second about encouraging young people to do it. But from what I've taken from you is, you almost build a home, and at least you mentioned as well, for a longer period. So actually, where you buy a boxed home from a builder, you might consider that and think, well, until I have a child or until I have a second child, this house will do me. There seems to be more long-term thinking with.
Well, the research we did said that building your own home is likened to the fourth move.
Yeah,
it's because of the equity,
isn't it? It's helping you to get to your forever home a lot quicker. Because of, I think the average sell and move cycle in a lifetime is at least 5 moves normally, until you get to your forever home or where you want to be.
Because you're putting up with what
you're putting up. You're making compromises. So custom build and self build, you will still get that equity uplift as well, won't you? That's the other thing, because you pay for your land, your build costs, and which are not insignificant, but you will get that equity uplift and get to where you want to be a lot quicker.
And a house that's far more environmentally sustainable and cheaper to run.
Yeah.
And supports local economies.
And to a degree, might even last a lot longer too.
Well, it will do.
Look at some of the estates that are being built now, and the subsidence
it will
within the first 5 years of build and things like that. There seems to be a lot of I'm trying not to diss. There are a lot of developers out there who are not necessarily performing.
There's that one. It was that site in Cambridge, wasn't it? It was all over the news. So literally, they had to pull down. Was it 800 houses that have been built?
Lots of houses had to come
because the foundations have done wrong.
Yeah. I had the same back home. Again, very farming land in Norfolk. 20% of it had to be pulled down because it literally subsided within the first year.
Yeah.
You could see it going. The cracks were forming in the houses. People were complaining, saying, "Look, I'm a year into my mortgage. My house is essentially crumbling away." I think there's some of them feel a bit rushed, and I think that when you hear those stories and you're looking to buy for the first time, it must be so frightening as a first-time buyer to look now and think, "I don't want to buy a home," and then a year later think, "Actually, it's falling down around me."
Yeah.
But there's this freedom. Going back to NAXPA for a second time. There is the NAXPA conference, which is happening. Is it right now?
It's next Tuesday.
It's next week, isn't it? Next week. Yeah. So, what can people expect from that, and what learnings can they take from that? And certainly let's talk to our broker audience for a minute. Is there anything they can take from it?
Do we need to just explain what NAXPA is as well a bit?
I think, we are assuming the audience might know, actually.
Well, NAXPA is the National Custom and Self-Build Association. So it's the trade body for this market, and I'm privileged to be on the board. Which is great for me because I'm obviously passionate about it. So basically, we work tirelessly to make this market equitable and fair and develop custom build. And the membership is spread across the whole spectrum of the model. So it's got lenders, it's got architects, it's got builders, it's got, you know, all the ancillary services within it, people, you know, from heat source providers and all that. So it's everybody. So it's just the collective, and then we lobby government.
That was going to be my next point.
Yeah, so lobby voice for government. We've got an excellent policy director that really, really knows his stuff. So the conference is just about, it's an annual thing. It's just bringing people up to date. We've got a good range of guests speaking from, I don't know if we've shot, not any government, because it's all been a bit in the air a little bit, isn't it? So we're not quite sure. But yeah, it's for anybody that's in the custom build or in the building sector and looks at this model, it's a great organisation to be a part of, because it's got a raft of opportunity in terms of insight, but also collectively getting together and talking to each other. I'm doing a lot with the finance side, because I think it's the first time they've had a board member that's actually directly linked to lending money, which is great. So it's opening up, and I'm talking to distribution about how NAXPA could help them and their members in terms of what it can offer. So that's something that we're kind of diversifying a little bit for. So yeah, I love being involved, and you know, NAXPA has shaped an awful lot of the reform that's already happened and defined these markets. We do an annual market report that it's £195, but it is a really, really good read. Yeah. You will learn so much about what we do. So yeah, it's there. It's the trade body for the industry.
And for those listening or watching at home, it's nacsba.org.uk, but I will put the link in the description of the podcast so you can get to that, so you can have a look for yourself. Again, a great resource. I had a good look through some of the most recent news before we came on today. Found it really interesting. Lisa, from your perspective as a home builder, where did you find your inspiration? Where did you find the advice you need? Where did you go? What did you learn during the process?
I think it, again, I probably just back in my career history, having helped so many clients with their self-build mortgages, I learned a huge amount then. So that's what I would say to any broker out there. Obviously, mortgages are mortgages, but when you do spend the time with people who are looking and have that dream of self-building, and you actually enable them through the finance to enable that to happen, you get a much deeper relationship with your client. And that's a bit, I was lucky enough to do some talks and spread the word on how achievable it is to actually finance these projects. I think there's a bit of a myth that you need to, be a millionaire to self-build, and that's definitely not the case at all. So there's so many financial options there and available to people. So the dream can be a reality. So for me, it was, I already had that knowledge because I worked for Build Store. Part of the initial training was to attend their self-build training, which was a 5-day, and that went through every aspect of self-building. So that's pretty much where, and like I said, because I was based at the centre, I then did a bit of research to find out how we should think about building as well. So but Grand Designs has always been obviously one of those things, and a few of the other programs that you watch, and I think we've watched every episode of Grand Designs, and obviously they've been on repeat for a long time.
I was going to say you can watch back many different designs by now.
25 years it's just celebrated.
I couldn't believe it. I actually couldn't believe it. I remember the first episode. It doesn't feel like 25 years ago.
But I tell you what, now watching it, having gone through the experience, it's because we're only a few months off finishing, I'm now looking at people that are struggling with their groundworks thinking, oh, we've done that bit, and gone. So it has put a whole different dimension onto it. But I think there's a lot out there, and also don't forget the lenders. They've got experts within the lenders that you can speak to who know the ins and outs of self-build. So again, for a broker, don't be scared about it, because you've got people that you can go and speak to. And whether you want to just find out you haven't got a client ready, or whether you get an inquiry, don't just think you have to hand it off, pick up the phone, talk
Absolutely.
it through.
Well, Lynn's beautifully, Lisa, you queued me up lovely for the next line of questioning, because I was going to talk about financing. And Phil, let's address some of those things that Lisa said, because I think that was my learning when I first started talking about self and customer mortgage with you guys, was how it all works. So maybe just talk to a broker who may never have gone into this space, that the support that's available to them, what's available, and how easy. And also, can you tap into the fact that first-time buyers can get funding?
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah. So it's the self-build opportunity in the market is catered for really well now by a lot of building societies. I might be slightly biased, but I think our website has got some really good resources. saffronforintermediaries.co.uk, self-build. We've got a guide to custom build. We've got a guide to self-build on our website. That's for any broker to use. We have a really helpful questionnaire to build into your fact find as well if you're an advisor. So it's asking all the right questions that you need to get from your client as early as possible. So even if you don't end up using us, there's some really good questions there that you could then get teased from your clients early doors to think about that. And we know a well-established mortgage advisory firm in central London. They've set up their own self and custom build team, and they've incorporated our questionnaire into their fact find.
Oh, wow.
We're more than happy to work with brokers on that as well. So it's all about providing education support, and there's a lot of it there in the market now. Certainly a lot more than there was probably 3 years ago, 5 years ago.
I must admit, I was doing my research for this, and I came across so many, it was hard to pick the links I wanted to use, because we don't use a lot of resource when we're discussing this. There's a lot of research for us before we chat, but it was shocking to find as much as I found. Certainly from a lender perspective, even lenders that don't lend in this space were talking about it because they've realised it's coming through. Tony, how's it been, growth-wise, from a lending perspective? Maybe not just for you guys, but across the board.
As I said, it's a growing market. That fourth largest builder, it's just cementing its place. I mean, I think in 2023 it was 12,000 units were built. I think that's up to 14,000. That'll come out in the NAXBA market report which is coming out next month, I think. So it's a growing market. It's the one part of the whole house building cycle that's not broken. There's funding. As Phil said, there's probably a dozen building societies that will help you and support you in this model. So funding is not the challenge. Obviously, it's funding in a slightly different way, but there's.
But you've got guys that help that
absolutely,
process, surely, They're not
brokers
that just be sort of like, I'm in a new space.
Oh no, and as Phil quite rightly said, we have those guides. Those guides are written for the broker, so it's not to give to your customer. This is to help you provide advice and support to a prospect and actually create those opportunities, because you're actually saying to somebody, have you considered this? So that's the beauty. So the finance bit. So look, there's a lot of support out there, an awful lot of support. It's just not part of our psyche yet as a country. We just don't think about build. We just think about grand designs, and then we go, oh, it's too difficult. Oh, it's going to be too hard. That's the thing. And grand designs is on because it's really interesting telly for innovative builds and problems, because it makes good telly.
What's interesting with grand designs?
Most of them are boring, so why would I want to watch that?
That's true. But it's made a success for itself on Channel 4, which has always been a much younger audience station. So whether that's driving this influence, and they're seeing it, and so it's got its place in helping this market now, where it perhaps didn't.
It has,
before.
But it's also a limiter, because that's how people think the model is.
They think it's going to happen,
and it's not.
Yeah,
it's not. It is that. Don't get me wrong, but it's a market for everybody.
But wasn't it Graven? It was 5 episodes of Graven. Was it Graven Hill? Was that the project?
Yeah.
That was a grand designs program, wasn't it? But that was talking specifically about customer. Yeah, I mean, I've not seen it, so I can't talk.
The street.
Yeah,
that's right. And so that was nice to have, but we need more of that. But then I think we've had this conversation before. if you're going to market out for self and custom build and you're going to encourage first-time buyers and younger people to do it, TV's not necessarily the space to be in. It's a TikTok, it's Instagram, it's where these people are digesting a lot of their news, their cycle from. Do you think that's where the industry needs to go? Do we need to, does NAXPA need to be looking at educating young people through various different routes? Is it the same for lenders?
Yeah,
Lisa, your experience on that as well.
I would agree, absolutely. It's looking at, as you're quite right, it's looking at the demographic you're trying to help and advise and doing that properly. The other key thing is go and find an advisor that knows what they're doing.
Yes.
You know, that's the key. Professional advice is so key in this area.
Absolutely.
There's a, you know, so do that. Look at people's websites. What do they do? How do they talk about what they do? You know,
Well, you've said something to brokers and advisors before. Make
all
sure your
the time.
website says what
Make
your
sure it
people are
reflects
doing,
what you
'cause
do. I
can't
mean, Lisa and I were
try to
talking about that earlier, weren't we?
Definitely. I think from a broker perspective also, you've just got to be prepared to give the knowledge years in advance for this as well. As I said, my journey's been 5 years. It isn't a quick thing. Very rarely is someone ready to go. But the information that I give to clients, even yesterday on a phone call, around she was saying she's got the money ready to start. Make sure you've got your structural warranty from day one of starting.
Yeah.
The amount of people that think I've started, I don't need a mortgage yet, I'm going to forget the warranty, and then want finance at stage 2, you know, where it gets to
you've
wind
got to
and
get a
watertight,
retrospective
and then you do
harder.
retrospective, which
Yeah.
costs 2 to 3 times as much
Yeah.
as stuff.
Yeah.
So the experienced brokers, like I know I save my clients thousands of pounds just with the knowledge that I've got a year, 18 months, 2 years in advance. But that's the bit that makes it really interesting because that client sticks with you. I've got clients up in Scotland who, I think we're on year 3 now. They're still not ready. We've still got to wait for accounts for next April. But they're sticking with me every 6 months. We touch base.
How lovely is that in an environment that's normally quick sell
Absolutely.
gone to have a pipeline? So actually you're future proofing yourself as a broker, especially if you're self-employed, you have your own business.
Yeah.
You're future proofing your business by using a separate part of the market and using your knowledge to future proof your
You
business.
have
That's a really good model.
touch points
That-
with your clients, so
Yeah.
it's a relationship.
Absolutely, that's the
builder.
beauty of self-build and custom build is because it's built in stages. It naturally gives you far more engagement with your client.
Yeah, it's a great. I mean, I've never thought of it in that perspective as a broker before.
Yeah.
I knew a lot of brokers are self-employed, but actually the future of and your development for that and making your name in a space like this as well. Have you found that, Lisa, that
Yeah,
making your name for a space in this field has brought you more
Absolutely,
clients?
yeah. And I think, you know, the other thing is somebody it won't be me, by the way, but a lot of people that self-build get the bug and then they self-build again.
Okay.
So it is, like you say, it's just an onward thing. And of course, once you've been involved that much with someone, they're always going to be your customer.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But we've got our board in the office, and one of my self-builds has just finished, and she sent all her photos in. They're
Oh,
all
I
on the
love
board because that's the first self-build that we've seen all the way through since I started my company. So it like I say, from a broker perspective, it can be very transactional, but this makes it so much more about the journey.
Absolutely, and we always call it the double bubble as well,
Yeah.
because as a broker, you not only get to support the self-build,
Yeah.
but once it's built, it's not a self-build anymore.
Yeah.
It's
No,
just a house,
it's a home.
and therefore you have the opportunity to stay with that lender with the right rate, or remortgage it onto an appropriate house product because it's not got the premium
not
of,
got
of,
okay.
of self-build. So
That I
that's
hadn't considered either.
yeah, that's the beauty. And I was going to say something else, but I've completely forgotten what it
I was
was.
going to say on
now.
that, but also in my experience, I've done 4 mortgages off the back of one client because they might have buy-to-lets that they need to release
Of course,
capital
yeah.
to help with
So
the
you-
Thank you. I
build.
remember what I was going to say.
So,
Thank you for that. Thank you for Paddy. I was just going to say you talked about building your own home and then that bug to build more. Just wanted to bring in the other side of that, which is some do that, but then want to build houses for other people to
For
live
other
in. So
people.
development finance. So that's the
Okay.
other side of it. And shameless plug for Saffron. That's an area that we have been doing. We've been loudly silent doing it because not many people knew we did it. We've done development finance for almost a decade now. And it's a key part of our proposition going forward. So it ties in nicely here that people who are building and may have land to develop other houses, that's an area that we can support as well. So
I never even thought of that as a concept, buying a larger plot of land, building your own home on it, and then moving to
Built
development
self,
from
built
there.
to-
That's a hell of a shift. Very, very quick one.
We're seeing an awful lot of inquiries in that
Yeah.
space.
That's interesting.
Economies of scale. Build my own. Build some of it. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, at the same time, why not?
We will do a podcast special on development.
We should do.
We're long
we need,
overdue
we,
it, aren't we?
we
We're
do
long
need
overdue.
to
Let's
do
bring
one.
some experts
Just to
in and
explain
culture.
the market, people understand. I mean, the simplest thing is building to live in, self-build.
Yeah.
Building
Building
for
to
somebody
sell.
else to live in is development finance in our world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go. Right, we only have a couple of minutes left.
Gosh,
We've done it
wow.
again. I knew this was going to be one of those podcasts that were just 100% special. So before we move on, we have covered planning reform, we have covered getting a mortgage, and we've covered all the elements that we were going to talk about. Lisa, if you don't mind, we're going to put your not your contact, but a link to your LinkedIn profile on the description of the
Yeah,
podcast. So if
yeah.
people want some advice on being a broker in the space, maybe you can
Definitely.
offer some advice. So if you're happy with that, I'll put that
course.
link on.
Yeah.
So you guys, if you're looking to get some knowledge as a broker, you can speak to Lisa, but also as a builder, maybe she might offer some advice on
Yeah,
what it's been like to
definitely.
be a self-builder. So we'll leave the options open there. The guys' links are already on there. One last thing to talk about in the last couple of minutes, guys, and Lisa, you could get involved in this conversation because we love this conversation. There was no rate reduction for the Bank of England in September.
No.
I think we predicted that, didn't we?
I,
did.
God knows.
You did.
Did I?
You were,
I-
you were the Lego.
did I?
No, I
Oh,
think,
God.
Phil, you were a no.
I was a no.
Yeah.
I did call it for August.
You did. You were the one that got it
And,
right. Yeah, we did say that
yeah.
last time.
Yeah.
I was convinced
Yeah.
that I called it, and then I rewatched
Yeah,
this.
it
And
really-
said,
it went,
no,
yeah,
I
it went to you. You saw the podcast.
I was like, oh yeah, I called it right, and I went, no, I didn't, did I?
We were a no in our office. Up to
Yeah, so Lisa, we've always got our crystal balls out of the podcast, trying to
Absolutely.
predict some of these things. We've always done it. And so predictions, October. Is there a meeting in October? Or is it November? So it's been 6 weeks up. It'll be October, end of October, won't it?
It'd be first. Is it
First week in November?
First week in November, won't it be?
So we won't know by the next podcast. What do we think? Are we going to see a reduction? Tony, sorry, Phil, we had a conversation about this before
Yeah.
the podcast. Somebody who you know to generally be
Yeah.
right is predicting two?
I was of the belief that we would be getting one reduction by the end of the year. So just the noise and the music was seen from the market and what was been saying. But from my conversation last night, I've revised my opinion now. I'm going to go bold and say we're going to get two reductions.
You're
by
going
the
with
end
the
of
two?
year. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to be coming back to you in December. with
Rationale
this.
for it is the US are
I was literally about to say.
aggressively cutting
Sure.
rates.
Yeah.
Also, Europe is too. So those are two, I think, big factors that we can't really ignore.
America was a bit of a shock, wasn't it? I think when I heard that news, it was
Yeah,
they're in the middle
yeah,
of a campaign trail at the
quite
moment. That came
significant.
out. I didn't expect that to come out during the campaign
So-
trail, but I was quite surprised that it significantly
Yes.
jumped downwards. Yeah.
So that should be some good news for the market. We've also got our budget, which is finally going to be the 30th of October. So that will remove some uncertainty as well and some of the holding off. I mean, my view is I don't know why the budget has been held over till as long as it was. I mean, if you look back for previous new governments, they've tended to have fairly quick emergency budgets within a month. So I think that was a mistake by the new government.
I have a theory, but I'm not going to talk about it here or not.
Yeah,
But yeah, so I have a theory
so
for it.
yeah, so I think that, and also I've talked to a lot of brokers, and their view is the tipping point for to really bring back consumer confidence in the market is a rate of about 3.7.
Okay.
So the sooner we can get to that tipping point, the better. And as we know, 3.5% has been the average over the last 100 plus years, going back, taking out this recent cycle we've been in since 2009. The norm is round about 3.5%. So so that's
As much as
where I am
interest
with
rates
it.
are really important, we want them to come down. Really and truthfully, it's inflation and the cost of living that we really need to get under control, so people can afford to live their life normally. The only reason these extra interest rates are up and the extra fee, the extra money on your mortgage is because they haven't got any money elsewhere to supplement it. So, I think I would like to see a bit more focus on what they're going to do about cost of living and where we're going with that, because that's really fell off the conversation, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And that's what's really affecting everyone, all of us,
Yeah.
no matter who you are.
Yeah.
So although we do focus on the rates quite a lot, I would like to see a bit more on inflation. Maybe we can do a little bit on that on the next podcast, Tony.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
Yeah.
And at that, that's it. Again,
Wow, that's
Lisa,
gone
your
by.
knowledge and experience has been
Thank you
exceptional.
so much.
We can't wait to have you back.
Yes.
Next time we have to talk about this
Yes.
conversation or anything,
Absolutely.
we'll get you back on because that's really
You can
good.
be our self-build expert from
Thank
now on.
you.
There we go.
Yay.
And 'cause you're a case study. We
Yeah,
can
exactly.
never find
you can't
case studies.
get better
It's
than
perfect.
someone who advises and has done it. It's amazing.
And
Thank
Well,
you.
next
Now we-
time I'll be in it. and then I'll be
Yeah.
living
Now
the
we're linked on
dream.
LinkedIn.
Great.
If I don't see some pictures
want all
of
the
your
pictures.
home, I'm going to be really upset
all
because
the
it sounds like
pictures.
it's going to be beautiful and economical
Yes.
and exactly what you were looking for. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Thank you.
And Tony, we're going to talk about this again, aren't we? Because we're still waiting on the release of some research.
Absolutely,
so we will
yes.
cover this again. If
Yes,
not the
we will
main
be
topic,
covering it
we'll
again
cover
within the
again.
next month or so because we've done some research, particularly around custom build and looking at younger demographics as to their awareness and appetite.
Okay.
So that'll come out soon.
We'll put that in. We'll put it in the conversation in a future podcast.
Absolutely.
But for this month, that's it. Phil, thank you.
Thank
As
you.
always. Tony, thank you. As
Pleasure.
always. And
Pleasure.
Lisa, again, thank you for joining us.
You're
Really
welcome.
helpful. And for those of you that are listening to us on Apple Music or any other audio podcast sites, hop over to Spotify. You can watch this entire podcast in video format. So please do that. If you've enjoyed today, please give us a 5-star rating and a little comment. It does help other people to find us and find out this information that you found so useful if you've made it all the way through to me talking now. So do give us a follow as well on all your favourite channels. We'll be back on the 1st of November. Yes, 1st November. We're back on the 1st November with a whole new range of topics and we shall see you then. But for now, goodbye.